Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
I love it.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney here. We've got Bobby in the house. Dude, he's got 99 problems, but his hair ain't one. So we're just going to roll out there. And he's wearing a bow tie. It's my new favorite human. Let's go. How you doing today, man?
Fabulous, Austin. Thank you so much. This is going to be great, and I'm excited.
This is going to be great, guys. I got introduced to him by a mutual friend, Tom Donnelly. So it's always nice to be connected with like-minded people. We got on the phone. Best friends already, so we're going to get going. Bobby, why don't you start us where you want to? Kind of tell us a little about yourself, and we'll just get rolling.
All right. So my story begins with a few more hair follicles, but a little bit more of a chip on my shoulder and some ambition. My journey that led me to here now pretty much started about 5 years ago, but I was changed and motivated to get to that point after both my parents had died many years ago, starting when I was 26. So then, I found myself 5 years ago, wife and 3 kids, and I felt like I worked at a button factory, but in the end, I just wanted to do something different, and in real estate anyways, because that's what I do. And realizing that I wasn't so much of a salesperson and that real estate really wasn't about sales, I had to find a different way of doing it. Ran into a company, which is actually a book called Ninja Selling. And that changed everything for me. Ninja Selling by Larry Kendall is a relationship-based real estate transactions, so to speak. And it changed my business. I've been doing this for about 6 years, but overnight my business doubled, and I ended up writing a book from everything, how everything turned out. And I'm just wanting to share it with the world because I know there's a lot of good people out there that don't want to just start bothering people that they don't know, asking for things that, they may not need, and to help the industry as a whole.
This is amazing. We've now entered where this is my own private interview now, because this is perfect. Because, as I transition over to the coaching business, you want to, and in the real estate transactions, you want to provide as much value as possible, but you also don't want to feel like you're bothering people or you're in their face. But that's where we are this day and age with the social media, with the other things. And so, when you found this training, did it feel like it fit like a glove, or was this like something new that you had to train yourself? And when you found it,
it had, the saying, you had me at hello. It was almost like a gift, a blessing, because I had been thinking of how could I sell real estate without calling 500 people a day I don't know, and doing the whole needle in a haystack, just taking the odds. The 99 go jump off of bridges didn't validate the one maybe, which wasted 2 more weeks of my time, which ultimately would be a no, right? So I wanted to do this forever. I'm a 3rd generation realtor. I felt like I could really add value and not have to take value at the same time. And Ninja Selling does it. They proved it. And me being so passive and unable to sell, not really ever even having a sales job, just learn to add value on a professional level and do it with a system that keeps the phone ringing.
Mm-hmm. And when you entered into this business, because we talked on the phone, you're about adding value, you're about lifting people up and stuff. So, talk about and it's so much greater than that, right? Because I feel like I felt this way when I found personal development. You want to share it with the world, and you're like, how do you not know this? And I'll just talk on this level. I find a lot of the techniques used in, let's say, traditional real estate, because I coach a lot of real estate agents, to be archaic at best. And maybe there's a switching of the guard and everything. So did you feel like you got some pushback even though you had the sales to back it up, or do you feel like that business model, meaning the real estate agent business model, is in the shift?
I think if it's not already, which there are many agents that do it that way that are millionaires, right? They make it work, but I believe it's at the expense of the consumer who doesn't want to receive the value in that way, which creates a persona of the industry as a whole, right? So if people are hating on realtors, it's probably because of the abundance of those realtors, right? Because if we're all adding value, why would anyone hate? Why do people have negative things to say about auto mechanics, right? Because in the 80s, right, what do? They would just, you go in to change a wiper and all of a sudden they say your tranny's blown. And, you can only take so much of that before the culture just says, you know what, you guys stay over there. And I call it the trust tax. Stephen Covey's son wrote a book. I forgot something trust. It was a great book though, actually. I read it a long time ago. And for realtors, we have a big trust tax. When I'm trying to sit down with a client to learn their needs and discover the problem or the goal that I can help with, it's not really overcoming me personally as it is the persona of what I do as a realtor. The value, I'm overcoming the negative value on that from the beginning. And I want to change that. In 20 years, I want people to say, hey, if you know a realtor, you got anything you need. If you need this for your house, if you need that, it's like a doctor. I feel like there's a way that you can, and there is, but I felt like there was a way that you could do it where you could create a culture where it adds value to the industry and you and long term, and you can grow it, right? So scale it. If I can, that's why I wrote the book. I want to create a lesson from it, a certification from it. So if I can kind of snowball and pack in more realtors so they can learn it and they can take care of their families and not be the roller coaster effect of income and stressing and getting down from the process in general, but thrive and grow, and then everybody wins, right? The consumers are glad, the industry is sustained. We're not buying stuff with apps getting ripped off. It's a system and an industry and a professional that we can all trust, and that's really the big picture.
And I only relate this too because I sold wine for 20 years at a high level. I try to tell people, like, wine is sold by the story. It's sold by the perception. It has nothing to do with what's in the bottle.
Nice.
And the reason I tell this story is because there was a wine that came out, and my friend knows more about wine than anybody I've ever met. He could eat the dirt and tell you where the wine came from. That's how crazy he is, right? And he said, hey, awesome. You got it. I always tell this story. He said, man, in order to truly sell something, you have to live it, you have to breathe it, you have to know everything about it. And so he said, there's this wine coming on the market. You're going to sell it, and you're going to sell a lot of it if you know it and breathe it. Well, this was when Prisoner came out, before Prisoner was Prisoner. So I sell it for like a year. I'm number one salesman in Texas of Prisoner, like all these things. He stands up in a meeting with 50 people and he's like, see guys, if you know about it and you live it and you breathe it and you taste it, you know everything about a wine, like Austin does, you can really take it to the next level. And I stood up in that meeting and I said, I've never tasted the wine a day in my life. And he cussed me and walked out of the room. But what that tells you guys is what he's talking about is if he is already stepping into a perception, but when you can step on the other side of the perception, you've gained the sale, you've gained the audience at a greater level because the belief of who you are as a person is so much greater.
Yes, and I don't want it to sound too like I'm trying to be the Mother Teresa of real estate. If I can succeed in shifting the paradox of the consumer, I win instantly. Mm-hmm. So I get the deal, I get the listing, I get the contract. And that's really the ultimate goal. But what I also think it's doing is it's preserving for the next realtor behind me so that I'm always adding value. That's why networking is a big part of what I do. It's using the resources of other professionals directly and indirectly in the field to just add value any way I can for people as their lifelong relationship realtor. I could supply them with anything they need for any reason. It doesn't have to do with the house. And that's the premise of Ninja Selling. And so our famous quote is never ask for the business. And that violates tons of sales laws. I mean, there's people that would flip out if I even said that, but it's true. We don't have to ask for the business. I actually, in the last 3 years, have never brought a listing agreement to a listing appointment. And I'm the only realtor that I know and I've sold a couple hundred, I think, in the last 4, 5, 6 years. That doesn't bring them, because I don't want the obligation of the pressure of feeling that matters. The customer can rescind, they can change their mind, right? If I haven't even gotten started, people, sometimes agents feel like that signature is just payday to them, and to me, that's the first step from the wrong outlook. Number one, so I put all the pressure on me to perform and understand what the client actually needs and determine if they need to sell or buy or can first, and then give them clarity in the process, and then answer those questions that they have. And that's usually where the paradigm shift comes in. All of our parts of our process are designed to fill the gaps and the problems that come with the standard way of doing real estate by most standards.
And I love that, and we're going to dig into that deeper. But what I want to ask you, just in your personal opinion, why do you think, and this is something I deal with my employees and everybody I coach, why do you think everybody's so focused on short-term business transaction relationships instead of creating long sustainable relationships, meaning legacy play? Like, that's literally the first thing I go to with all my clients. Like, are you building your life off of a scoreboard and transaction, whether you're going to lose? Why do you think that's the case?
I think it's basically the goal that they have from the beginning. Number one, how do they want to scale it? And there's two ways to do it. You can start with an advocacy of the consumer, like the people's champ, like which my persona. But then there's others. I've met brokers who thought from the beginning to scale it up, but not by the culture, not by the system, but by just recruiting agents. And they just want to have a brokerage as soon as possible, scale it up to a sellable commodity, and do it that way. But from really the heart of the answer to that question is, most people just don't believe there's as much value in long-term play from today's actions as it is today's actions for the next shiny thing. They don't believe it for themselves, or that it'll happen, or that it'll be sustainable with whatever they do or know now.
Mm-hmm. No, and I agree. I mean, I think, what's not talked about is culture. I think is everything. I think, I was talking to a bigger investor the other day, and he said the only real capital that exists in this world is people capital. It's social capital. That. And when you find the assets, meaning the people, because you're one person. And so if you what I love to do, it's really odd. I don't know why the old man has become the young guy. I like all my dudes that I help are like super young, but I see something in them that I saw in myself. And God, if somebody would have told me at 24, I'd already be sitting on a beach somewhere, right? And so, like, everybody asks me, like, what do you think about when you do these interviews? Like, or I've said, I'm just giving advice to my younger self. That's all it is. And so, I think that you meet these people, and as long as their goals are aligned with you and their values are aligned with you, I think adding people to a stable of real estate agents just because they do revenue doesn't really do anything for me. So I would imagine you as a builder, you're looking for a certain type of person, right? So what are the qualities, the values of that person that you're looking for when you're seeking team members?
It's really attitude, but also what they're willing to do, right? And not everybody is ready to go. In fact, you're almost never ready. You just have to decide. But it's what they're willing to do and why. And I think if those answers are agreeable by all parties, it's going to be a great journey, because they're going to be doing the things that they should to get the results that they're expecting and that I know are possible from it. And that's good. I mean, you don't have to do special training. You don't have to learn all these types of closes. I always tell people, just be yourself. If the main goal is to work with people or to have a connection to where like and trust them, what's the most important on the very first interaction? And almost always they say trust. And I get it, because trust is more valuable as a whole, but you're never going to get real trust on the first interaction. How could we? But if we can get them to like us by being ourselves, then everything can build off that. If they like us, if there's some good energy and I get good positive vibes and you're fun and funny and you're relaxed and you're free from concern, so I feel like I can let my guard down, that's how you build trust and really get to know somebody. And at the end of that, then you've got a raving fan. And that's how the referrals snowball. But that's the goal, is to just be yourself, add value, listen really deeply. There's an acronym in the book, Good Talk, Great Sales, the TALK, and it's designed to structure around that whole interaction between a client, so that you can start to build residual income and opportunities in real estate. Because if you have to make money fast, like if you just joined real estate and you need money like $100 tomorrow, that's the only problem I see with people, because I personally don't even know how to do it this way, and right off the bat get instant results. There's a chapter in my book called Relationships, and it tells a story of how a handyman in my networking group just saved the day for a client, and I ended up getting numerous referrals from that same client since, and it was just a great story. But there wasn't anything I did or paid within that 1, 2, 3, 6 months of time that made it happen. It was the years before to building the relationship of gratitude of past sales, and the relationship set to ensure that there'll be future referrals in the future. So in many cases, they'll do anything for somebody with that sort of influence. And so it takes time to build that up. But once you do, the phone rings.
And 100%, Diego Corza texted me yesterday, my buddy, and he's like, dude, 2 years in a row, I haven't spent a dime on marketing. It's going to be the best year of my life. Last year was the best year of my life, all referrals. And I think what people don't understand is when you have a referral, the trust base in that closing is almost, I would say it's probably 80% or higher, because you've already got the stamp of approval instead of seeking new business. And I don't think enough people pay attention. But here's a trick that I do is we have an Airtable chart that my business partner created, and we write every time I meet somebody, we write who they are, what they do. And then the last line is, if we were to get this person a gift and it was to make them smile, what would that gift be? And that all populates into a spreadsheet, right? And it's not like somebody that's already rich, they don't need expensive things. It's the thought of something that counts, that gains so much more weight by checking something maybe their daughter did, or something that wraps around family. And I think people look at just, I don't know, they look at material things when it's really about solving a conflict or solving a problem for somebody that is in a business relationship.
Yeah, or something that just means a lot to them. I sent a client one time, he was a baseball coach, and I knew that when he was younger, he just loved baseball. First child out of the gate was a little baby girl. And I remember we were at a meeting, and he mentioned how, I love my baby girl, and I'll teach her to play baseball. I don't care. So just hearing that, I didn't even say anything. I didn't even respond to his comment, but I went on Amazon and I found this little ladybug baby baseball set. Mm-hmm. It's like all padded, this cute little bat like this long, a little ball. And I bought it for him, auto shipped it. And he was ecstatic, and like $13. And he will just die bending over backwards to refer people to me, because I realized how much that meant to him. And in the book too, it talks about, listen to your clients. When your client talks to you, they're playing music, or they're playing you a song, listen to the music, not the lyrics. So I learned to look at people's why and listen to the change of tone, and listen to some details, so you can really see the level of importance and what's important to them, and just focus on that. And just, here's another thing too. There's something that I read about, and I can't even remember the book, but it's called the Law of 250. So it says that every human being, most human beings, when they get to a professional or a level in their life professionally where they're at an age where they met someone, they're going to get married. This author interviewed all these wedding coordinating people, and they said, how many people show up to these weddings? And he said 500. So it's 250 each, much bigger than my wedding. I think I had about 250 total. But he said each person kind of has a collaborative family unit of friends, colleagues, old friends, new friends, 250 people they know. And he proves it because he interviewed people who run funerals, funeral homes, or cemeteries, and he interviewed how many people show up to your average wake, or your average open casket, or your funeral. And he said 250. People live their whole life, and collectively they're losing and gaining people, but there's about 250 people that know them enough to show up at their wedding or when they die. And those are the same people that can be influenced or influence that person while they're alive. So if you focus on the people that are like-minded with you and you put all your energy into them, which there's another author, Mike Michalowicz, wrote about the pumpkin plan. I would definitely recommend reading that if you have not already. Focusing on people who think like you, believe what you believe. You get along really well. Every time you talk, there's a nice affinity. Now, if those are just normal professionals and those are clients or will be clients, he says focus on those, and then that will tap into their 250 each. And so the Ninja Selling says that for every client you have in your database, you should get, I think it's like $1,000 a year, I think, for every person, for every household. So if you got 100 people in your database, 100 only, that's $100,000 a year in revenue. And you're only working on those 100. So you're not paying for advertising. You're not door knocking, cold calling, which I've never done in 6 years. And so I bought into that. And then when I realized it worked, I had to share it. I'm like, wow, why are we spinning our wheels, getting cussed out by, 400 people, barely having the grit and the desire to bust hump to save the 10 that do want to work with us. But for people who we care about, people who give back, people who are appreciative, people who know how to use and hire and work with a professional, you'll move mountains for them. And so you'll offer better service, you'll feel better, the transaction's better, you're only focusing on what you do best and not selling yourself. And it's just a win-win.
No, I love that. And I read an NLP sales book where he was talking about that they did a bunch of studies, and like 80% of your deals came from like the 10 closest people to you. And so I had one of my clients like reach into his list of people who've done deal and ask that list. And he wound up closing like 4 deals in like 3 weeks, when he had been doing 600 cold calls a day. And so,
wow.
I it's an amazing. I've been taking notes. I've already ordered those 2 books on Audible. But
The sneakiness.
Yeah. Quick technology. But what I want to talk about now is, you do have a book coming out, next month. You don't have to get to a granular topic, but if you could cover, like, a lot of the guys that listen to my stuff are brand new agents or soon to be agents or young investors. Kind of give an overview of some tactical stuff that you're going to be presenting in the book, and kind of go from there and use your knowledge.
Absolutely. And the book is already out, actually.
Okay.
But the Audible comes out, which is so much. The guy who's reading it, Wes Abram, I think his name is, phenomenal. I feel like he wrote it. Like he accentuates on it on the right stuff, and it's unbelievable. But the nuts and bolts of it, really, it's not teaching you how to sell. It gives you some good operations for real estate towards the end, but it's split into 3 categories. So to understand the book itself before learning some of the techniques, is to know what it's designed to do. And when you ever heard the saying, when the teacher's ready, the student will. When the student's ready, the teacher will appear.
Mm-hmm.
The book has a ton of nuggets in it, but I found that people aren't going to do it if they're not motivated to do it. They'd rather stick with what they're used to, what they're comfortable with, what they know. So it's a 3-phase book. One is a total paradox awareness, and it's in story form to kind of give you a paradigm shift, tell you the mental side of it, which is, as you know, paramount to any sort of growth. But then it tells you some action steps that you can take personally and daily to make that easier for yourself, and to translate your daily action steps into a system with intentions and a purpose, and that could be goal oriented and quantified. Because in real estate, we don't get paychecks. We're in the show business, right? If we don't show results, we don't get paid. So how can you get predictable income, the money, the dollar, when you're really just trying to be nice to people over and over? And there's no way to know infinitely That's where the system helps. But then the third part is, you ever seen the movie of Mel Gibson, like What Women Want? The third part is telling you what clients want. It's putting you in their head, so you'll learn what kind of questions to ask as a realtor, as a new realtor. You'll learn that questions is actually the way to communicate initially from our position, especially on the first one, whereas most will just talk. Most will just pitch. Most will just lay out a plan. Most will just talk about commission or price, and that's, they have to do that, because if they haven't sought out to understand the need of the client or the obstacle, and the client doesn't see the dots connected, then they're just going to fight or flight, right? It's just then charge the least. You do it for 4%, 2%, 3%. But if you can shift the paradox, if you can, and there's another saying, it matters who says it, right? If you can't tell them or sell them, you got to kind of show them. And if they can see it that way, they'll have their own self-actualization. They'll be ahas like crazy. It'll be like fireworks. And they get it. And then they, in the end, sell it to themselves. And that's what the goal is. And it starts with that acronym TALK. It's truth, whether that be you planning out how you're going to do this to do it right and be it honestly. It's paying attention. It's speaking in a way and conveying information where you're getting attention. It's listening to the extreme, listening for more than just to be polite, listening to be effective and to have all the info that you need to serve them the best. And kindness, that's the attitude you should have. As soon as an agent hears something they don't like or that's different or something they feared, then it's all about them, and they get emotional, they get a little snuffy, or they get a little argumentative, or if someone says do it for 5%, I saw a script once where the person said, well, I'm worth more than that. And I don't think that's fair. I don't think you can declare that. I think that has to be proven, right? You just can't say you're worth it. I've had agents that just got out of real estate school and they go, I'm going to make a commitment to only do open houses at $1 million and above. Like, well, that's awesome, but good. I wish that person the best who hires you to sell their $1 million asset just because you want to, just because you want to, have more a higher dollar per hour thing. There's another saying, don't practice on your clients. So that's it. Just go in there with true discovery. The best thing you can realize is that they don't need to sell, or maybe that they can't. But if you're honest with that, you'll save yourself so much heartache. And if you're honest with that and they do need to sell, they will realize it in many cases before you as the agent, and you'll always get the deal. And they'll never ask you about commission. I have not had to rebuttal commission I can't remember the last time.
But on a deeper level, because I'm going to take it down even farther in the sand, what that is also is adopting an abundant mentality opposed to a scarcity mentality. And I think by adopting both mentalities, I think you're basically telling the universe what you're.
It's getting a little choppy.
Yeah, you're telling the universe what you're worth, and you're basically saying you're not. What I mean by that is like a lot of times when you're in a deal, right? Wholesale, real estate, whatever, you don't want to tell your clients the truth because you want to get the deal. And what you're doing is you're setting yourself up for failure down the road, right? And you're wasting their time, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your money, you're wasting their money. And, my favorite quote in the entire world is Kyle Cease. And he says, since you're doing all the quotes, I'm going to bring out some too. So he said that everybody's so concerned what they'll lose by telling the truth because that's quantifiable. They have no idea what they might gain by telling the truth because they can't see that. And
exactly.
It's in relationships, it's in business. You have to stand on the facts, cut the emotion out of it, and just speak your truths. And if they decide to go with you or a different agent because of that, they've made that decision, and you have to live in a place to know that you said what you needed to say, and you have to go. I've seen it a million times. Oh, the client wants $14 million for their house. Well, it's only worth $12 million. Well, no, but I'm going to sell it for $14 million. Well, you just wasted about 6 months of your time and about $60,000 on open houses.
Yeah.
So, I mean, haven't you seen that
And
before?
they believed you. Absolutely. That's actually in the book, because it's that lie not only might lose them the deal right then and there, but it also validates the mediocrity of the whole process for them. Why would they have any desire to seek a better way if they can just lie their way through the whole thing? But if you're willing to be vulnerable and be honest with your process, and it's not good enough, what's the only true solution? Get better. Find ways to not to have an answer for that. Find ways to honestly be better without lying. But the mind can only absorb what the seat of the pants can endure. And agents aren't willing to do to get better, right? They think they already deserve it. So what do? They say, you should list it for 12 million. No, list it for 14. Okay. Oh, do it for 5. Well, I'm worth 6. I won't do it unless you do it for 5. Okay. 6 months later, it doesn't sell. No showings. What happened? What do they say? It's the market. And they always have an excuse. They always can run. They can blame and point fingers, and who loses? Everybody. The seller, the agent, the industry. They're starting over. Now they're going to, list it for sale by owner, and that's probably going to be worse. Or maybe they will sell it and think they can do it better, but they sold it for $50,000 less than most. And I mean, it's just terrible. But if they're really being honest, they will seek and find ways to be better. And that happened for me. My listing of appointments and the things I do, it's constantly evolving. It's different. My approach is different this week than it was 2 months ago, because every time there's a problem, I create a part of the system that is a solution, and it just keeps getting better.
No, it's so funny. I just taught an Airbnb class before this, and I left them with this last thing. If a problem happens in your property or with your systems, and you write it down, and it happens more than once, it ain't the customer or the guest's fault. You got to look right in the mirror. And I don't think people do that enough. And that took me a long time to understand. And it wasn't until I read Jocko Willick's book, Extreme Ownership, that regardless of what it is, you own it. My drug problems, my alcohol problems, you can blame all the people in the world, my overweight, all those things. But it's not until you step in the mirror and you stare at yourself and say, I'm going to stand up for the ownership of my problems. I can't control what other people's issues were in this, but I'm going to take my power. And when you do that, it's a simple thing is we hide our truths in the cave with the darkness. And when you hide them in the cave with the darkness, they control you. It's not until you bring them into the light, they don't own you anymore, and you can step out in front of them. And so I want to do that because you seem like a fit man. I know what group you're in. If you're in a group with Tom, it's a whole life millionaire system. So I want to talk about my favorite subject, which is mindset, health, all those kind of things. And talk about, you can start where you want to and your journey on those things, because it's not enough to just know real estate. We're trying to optimize who we are completely as a person. So talk about your journeys into personal development.
Well, that's a great segue, because, if anyone listening to this would ask how you look past those truths or what most people do, lying, and then where do you get the energy to seek that out, that better process? I think it starts with that physical nature of what we're about to talk about, which is a way of waking up in the morning, a way of starting your day, a way of just beginning the day in thought and even in like physicality, like the energy that you produce when you wake up, when you go to bed. I don't think I didn't even realize it until a few years ago that when we wake up, the direction at which we go, it could be anything. And it could be the slightest thing, like a headache. You're just tired, more tired than normal. Maybe you're having a bad dream you don't even remember, but you're just negative, or you're feeling down on yourself, or some doubt, or just whatever, like a cloud sometimes it feels like. And everybody dictates their every other decision after that based on that feeling, if they don't have a routine or an intention, right? If they don't have something that they have scheduled for themselves to do for themselves to get them in a position mentally and physically to do more, be more, and serve more. And then you think, why doesn't everybody do it? Because until they have that your back's against the wall and you have a really big reason to, why would you add that much effort to a process, right? It's insane. And for me, I still had lag. There's still a lot of things I hadn't achieved and goals I wanted, but that wasn't even enough. It's not about somebody or you not being able to get the things you want. For me, it was the day where somebody told me I couldn't have the things I needed. And that wasn't good enough, right? So when you have that oh no day to where enough is enough, you'll do it. So then I just sought out solutions. I needed to hear stories of who did what. So I was reading out of disparity. And I started to understand the connection between the mind and the body when you do something physical. And I had just come off a year where I worked my bumper off. Sorry. I was working my bumper off, but I felt terrible. I was still tired. I lost like 30 pounds and I was giving all my attention to my clients and not myself. But the best thing that everybody hears, and it's a good analogy, is when you're on an airplane and they're talking about the oxygen masks. And when they fall, what do they say to do first? They always mention to put it on others that you're with who are younger, smaller, need help first, and then or you put it on yourself and then you can help them. Because if you're frantically trying to help other people and you forget about yourself, you're going to be worthless to them and you. And I realized that, if you want the golden egg, you have to take care of the goose. And that's when those seeds get planted. You're willing to pay that price. And then I just followed the recipe. I started going to bed early, ending my day with intention, with some tasks that get started in the beginning as far as work goes. But then I had a system for myself. So I'd wake up early. I added in prayer, gratitude prayer in the morning. I added in 30 minutes of solid reading of a business book to gain some sort of edge, some sort of aha or a technique or a perspective to carry with me that day. And I can't tell you how many times what I read in the book that morning made a significant value add to my day that day. So if people aren't reading at all and they're going off memory and what they learned, I don't know, when they took their real estate course or they watched a YouTube video 2 months ago or they listened to a podcast, that stuff's always flowing through my brain. So if you want to overflow to other people and not end the day empty, you have to have a part of the day where you're unloading this information. And then that coupled into a 1 mile run. And 3 years later, I'm now doing 3 miles a day. And then that's followed by a 30-minute muscle workout. So I'm doing, whether it's, Monday's chest, Tuesday's back, Wednesday's shoulder, I forget what Thursday is, but that gives you energy and it sets the tone for, how you're going to feel, how you want to feel. Before my run, I'm listening to YouTube motivational stuff. I mean, we're talking Les Brown, Denzel Washington, the extreme ownership guy. What's his name? Jocko
Willink, yeah.
Oh, yes. I love seeing his little 4:30 Timex Ironman things and stuff like that. I mean, that just fires me up. And it's not automatic, right? I have to force that information into my head. I don't wake up going, I'm going to run through a wall and crush it. But I intend for that and I want it to. So it just takes extra effort. But exerting yourself physically is proving to your body that you really want what it is you say you want. And if you don't do it physically, you're kind of drifting away from that. And it's so much harder to maintain. It's so much harder to adapt to problems. It's so much harder to have the energy and the desire to learn more and to serve others and to do it with a smile. I had one guy at my networking meeting go, you guys are amazing. You seem to never have a bad day. And I laughed. I said, that's the goal, man, because we have the same bad days you do, but you'll never know. Mm-hmm. And that's the truth we say to ourselves to make that our reality, because there is no truth. It's perception, right? I mean, I have just as much of a reason to be a pessimist all the time as I do an optimist. Good luck and bad luck fall in the same realm, right? The more decisions you make, that's going to lead you to something good or something bad. That's why I say those who seem to work the hardest seem to have the better luck, because every decision gives you good luck or bad luck. Inaction more or less gives you bad luck. But if you're sitting on your couch watching TV and a helicopter lands on your roof and you die, you still made the choice or the choices before that to leave you right then and there. And that's what happened. So because our choices dictate what happens to us, I say if it can go both ways, why not set goals, kind of technically, specifically reverse engineer them and have a plan of action daily, weekly, and monthly to attain them. Commit to an attitude to keep me happily moving towards that, and serve others seeking to learn more and master what I do. And it's been amazing. Easier said than done. But again, I haven't told you the 2x4 story, which might explain a lot of things, but that's it. The physical stuff that you do is huge. And when you do it is even more important. The miracle morning is what I think everybody should get to really take what I just said a lot more detailed and a lot deeper, by Hal Elrod. He's been on the GoBro Talks a couple times too. But the miracle morning is what took what I learned from ninja selling and allowed me to physically apply it to my world. And it's been awesome.
Yeah. And I think, we were talking about this the other day. I've got a couple friends of mine. First of all, if you coach with me, you're not allowed to not work out. And I think it's the quickest way to change your life, to win small habits, small goals. You can win over and over, gain the confidence that you're seeking in yourself. But I think people get scared of discipline. They get scared of like, well, that's too much. Like, I don't have the time. And I'm like, no, you're not creating the time, because you're viewing as your time with your client, or your time where you think you're moving forward. You're actually not, right? And in full disclosure, like, I haven't had the best day. Like, my mind is playing tricks with me. But in the past, I would have knocked out a handle of vodka. Instead, now that I'm sober and I'm surrounded by amazing people, I sent one text out to Matty A. Everybody knows Matty A. And he sent it right back and straightened me out, and we're good to go, right? And that's what you've created, because the mindset is so set on, the default is set on hell yeah, right? Instead of hell no. And because it is, I can pull it out real quick, and I think that's the difference, is because there's been so much work on the mind,
I get a lot of my power from Jesus and Christ and my faith. And there's something called exousia power. And it's the power to not do something that you can do, that you know how to do, but it's not good for you. It's easy, it's accessible, it's tempting, but it doesn't help you. And that resistance gives you the same confidence that doing something difficult that's hard. And that exousia power is really what I call on for that kind of discipline. And sometimes it's just staying focused. Like, my ADD wants me to go stare at that butterfly for a few minutes, right? You'd be surprised how hard it is to concentrate on anything for 15 minutes. So I actually got an hourglass.
Okay.
And until the sand is gone, I stop it with the butterfly, come back to center. Because if I can't focus on anything for more than 5 minutes, what am I going to do in this world?
Dude, I heard from a high performance coach on Instagram. He started the meeting out like this. He goes, all you high achievers, you only work 45 minutes a day. Don't lie to me. You're at the water cooler talking to your buddy, checking your Instagram. I know what you're doing. It's the truth, right? And we've created, in this day and age, right, we've created so many distractions to keep us from sitting in whatever we're dealing with, or not asking the questions we need to ask. I have been, people have said, you're really good at asking the questions, like for people. And I go, because I've asked the questions of myself. And because I'm got real with myself, I can get real with other people, because I know I'm not going to let myself off the hook nor I'm going to let you off the hook, because nothing's going to get solved by taking the easy way out. And I did it for many, many years. And it's when you get to those other side of the mountain and you're surrounded by the people that you need to be surrounded with, and you're working out, you're doing your miracle morning. Hey man, you're doing your miracle night, dude. If you're a night owl, I don't even care. If that's when you get your work done, then bang it out. I'm all about that. But just knowing how you operate as a person, I would tell everybody, and this is what I do with my clients. I don't know if you do this with agents you bring on. I make them take a personality test. Mm-hmm. Because it really gives me a window into how to coach them, how to mentor them. And it's really one of those things that I don't think people take enough advantage of.
No, I agree. I think if you know how to understand those, you can speak to their paradigm. Because I think we all look at things differently. It's based on like a million different factors. And we all want each other to agree, but that's impossible. How could we all agree with different, you know what I mean? Somebody that grew up in World War II is never going to see things the way a millennial grew up. I mean, there's just no way. There's some people that look at, CDs to invest in as the biggest joke ever. But if you were born in 1975, then, CDs are like the bomb, even if it's 0.5% of interest, they'll just wait. But you know what I mean? So we are adapted to our environment around us, the way we were brought up, the things we were told by the people that mattered most to us. I mean, those experiences became reality to us, and it takes way more than people think to change that. Mm-hmm. And so, that's another part of the real estate sales thing I was telling you about. If you can do the paradigm shift, you don't have to have them agree with your point of view, because if that's all you're trying to do, they're never going to agree. Because if they don't see it the way you do, the agent's going to be like, well, I don't get it. Well, that's because you didn't get them. And like you said, know your client. So that's huge.
Well, it's interesting. It's like, not to get off topic, but, I see people like, oh, well, your grandfather's brother, he shouldn't be, he's angry and he's, racist or whatever. And I'm like, well, yeah, because that's what he grew up in. And I think you millennials are drama queens. So, I mean, it's all relative. But we as a society have chosen to not accept anybody's opinion. Nobody's allowed to have a separate opinion than us. But, they grew up differently, or their family have different values and stuff. And I think what I'm campaigning for is to get back to a little more compassion. And I have a really good friend of mine, Brad Johnson, who said that if you can walk around Austin and realize that everybody's hurting from something, then you'll have compassion in your heart for everybody. And I do that. And I don't attach myself to somebody having a bad day or going off on me. And I think that allows me to live a little more peacefully, and just keep the business and the drama out of it. Because it's not going to do you any good, and it's not going to do your client any good by attaching yourself to everything.
No, you got to give people permission to have a bad day. And absolutely. Well, I think we talked about this on the phone a few days ago about how we're all in the same storm. We're just in a different boat, right? I mean, we all love and want to be loved. And what matters most to us truly is what will matter most to us on our last days, right? No one ever wishes they spent, less time with their family and more time working, yet they feel that that's necessary now. And those shoulds, I mean, good and evil splits right down our hearts, our chests. And that's why GoBundance and the Tribe of Millionaires are so good, because it's accountability. We need it. We need that outside perspective, because we can should all over ourselves, SHOULD, about what is good, but then we'll validate or self-validate an inaction. And tomorrow, or that can wait. No, if you told yourself this morning it can't, then it still can't. Mm-hmm. But based on our energy or how we're feeling, we might justify. But no, accountability partners are amazing for that, because they are the gyroscope of our own desires that somehow we forget. And it's in journaling that I realized that. I look back at my journaling and I'm thinking, geez Louise, I had plans to do this, this, and this. What even happened? Like, I forgot about the most important thing in my life on June 12th, 2018. Like, that's how crazy goals can be. And then you just forget about them. So it's amazing how we can do that. So it's staying focused on what matters, because it's what matters, not because of how you feel that day. Mm-hmm. And I mean, that's the best way to help anyone, yourself or your client.
That's powerful. You just set me straight right there. So I like that because it matters, right? Because here's the hardest part. As a person who puts out content, podcasts, this conversation, whatever, there is an easy way that you could wake up every day and check your numbers. Oh my God, what am I doing? What did they do this? And I made a conscious choice to not, because it's not going to do anything for me. And I have to remove myself from the results, as I say, married to the process, divorced from the results, and know that anytime I'm feeling bad or I'm feeling like I'm not getting anywhere, what happens? The universe sends me that message and I get it. And I'm like, ding, okay. Like somebody's listening. We help somebody, like, great. So it's just, you just have to keep at it and, 10 feet from gold, that's the saying. But man, I've had such a good time. How do people buy the book now if they want to get it? And then how do they find out about you and all that stuff?
Thank you, Austin. Right now, you just go on Amazon.com and just type in Good Talk, Great Sales. It's only sold on there, but you can get a ton of free content on my website, goodtalknation.com. I got like 100 videos. A big one of my favorites on there is work-life balance. Mm-hmm. If you're transitioning from, entry level to high level, work-life balance, that video will give anybody a huge edge on how to not feel guilty about being away from their customers when they're with their family, and how to not feel guilty when they're with their customers about being away from their family, and understanding work-life balance as an entrepreneur, as somebody who is in control of their own schedule and is trying to find that balance, juggling act for peace inward, outward, all around, and thriving success and 5-star reviews. And I'll end with the fact that you said, what's your quantifier, and it's, for me, it's not sales. The biggest thing that I love is on my desk, all the way around the desk, there's hundreds of thank you cards, whether it be from vendors or customers, deep sentimental thank yous, unbranded, appreciate you kind of thing. And that's everything, because you're hitting you're sending the right message when that's the result. So if you look for that gratitude in those thank you cards, everything will follow. More clients, more opportunities, more money. And that's how I fell into, Tribe of Millionaires, Go Abundance. That's how I met you. You intend, you have your goal, you set it, you go after it. And here we are.
And I agree. And the world's a better place because, as my buddy would say, when you're playing that game, you're playing an infinite sum game, and you can't touch me because it's not based off of results, right? And so, make sure, guys, that you're living with compassion. You're setting the intention in relationships and talking the truths. Go pick up his book. The Audible's coming out soon. Man, I appreciate you so much, my brother. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Austin. This was awesome. And those are great questions too, by the way. So,
and guess what? They weren't written down. They just come to me. So yeah.
Yeah, that's good, man. Thank you so much.
Dude, I appreciate it so much. I'm going to have to get me a bow tie now too, because I'm jealous on the bow tie.
That's too funny. So. It's awesome.
All right, my man.
Friend.
If you like this,
Austin.
You got it. If you like this interview, make sure you share it with your friends, guys. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.